Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at a awesome piece of audio history. Today we have the Sony CDP-101 compact disc player. This was the very first CD player that Sony ever released back in 1982, over almost 43 years ago. This player was manufactured in 1983, and this is the US model, but this was the very first CD player that you could get your hands on ever from Sony. And this was actually the first one. It beat the Philips players to market by a few months because Philips had the launch delayed until 1983, early 1983. And this was the very first CD player that you could buy. So we'll go over some of the features, and it does not work. So we are going to see if we can get it to work. Alright, got that out of the way. So basically this is Sony's very first CD player. This was the CDP-101. It's actually binary code for 5. Apparently the model number was CDP-101 because 101 in binary means 5. And I guess they meant this as kind of a mid-range player. Well, there really wasn't anything to really compare it against because this was the very first CD player that Sony ever had, and this was the first from any manufacturer. This was released in October, like I said, October 1982 in Japan, and for a few months it was Japan exclusive, and then they came out with the US model, which is this one, in March of 1983, and yeah, that began the whole digital audio revolution that changed the way we listen to music. So this player, I got this off of an eBay auction. Somebody had put this up on eBay, and they asserted the bid at $50, and it went up to about $240 something, including tax and shipping and everything. It was about $260. So yeah, it's kind of expensive for what I paid for this, but you could probably get a decent, like, higher end CD player that has more features for probably a better price. About the same price that I paid for this one, but I just wanted to get this one because I've always wanted one of these players because they just look so nice, and you know, it is a rare piece of audio equipment. When I did get this, I actually was kind of surprised. It's kind of smaller than I thought it would be, and it's kind of made out of plastic. I won't go too much into detail about how it's like made, but it's made pretty well. And I haven't plugged it into power yet, but we're going to go over the buttons and everything, and just give you a basic overview of the player, and then we'll see if I can fix it. So looking at the player, we've got, of course, the power button, and you've got this timer play function right here, which is you can either have it on or off. I'm not really sure what that means, but basically down here, of course, you got your headphone jack. It's like a basic CD player. Of course, this is the disc tray. It uses a linear skate disc loading system, which I'm not exactly sure how that is, but I did remember this was a little bit complicated. They use a lot of motors to load the disc. They use a motor just for the clamping mechanism that actually clamps the disc so it can be spun up. And then over here, you've actually got all your buttons. You got your play, pause, you know, track, skip, and you'll actually notice that these buttons are actually, if I zoom in here, these buttons, if I can get this correctly in focus, if you look here, these buttons do not have like a tactile feel to them. You can press them, but they don't really they don't click. So you got play, pause, you got like an automatic music sensor. You can kind of skip, you can kind of fast forward through tracks. I'll have to experiment what these buttons do later. This is like your main track skip buttons. And you do have some features like repeat. You can repeat a B selection, or you can repeat all the tracks or one of the tracks. And then you've got your vacuum for VFD, vacuum fluorescent display here. It shows you the disc set, track number, disc selection, I guess, track number, minutes and seconds. I did read that these displays were very expensive back then, so they kind of kept them as simple, and later CD players, of course, had more features on them. And then you do have your remote sensor and everything, you know, IR receiver. You just did come with a remote. I don't have the remote, unfortunately. And then you do get, you know, time, which shows you how much is remaining on the disc, and also how much is remaining on the track. So it's basically just a run-of-the-mill basic CD player. There's not a lot of features on it, but that doesn't really matter to me. We will flip it around on the back and show you what's on the back. There's not much stuff on the back, but it is a very nice design. I really liked the design of it. You know, it's just I like the CD players like this. You know, you buy a modern CD player, and you know it's got like hardly any buttons on it. You got to use the remote or your SOL. You know, this is just when they knew how to make CD players. And you know, I wish this was metal. By the way, this top piece was metal, but it's not. It's kind of just plastic. And of course, it is a little bit smaller than I expected. It's a lot smaller than I expected it to be about the same size as a Betamax VCR, but it's a little smaller than that. And if we flip it over, we have the everything else. Basically, we have our line output. If I can zoom into that and get a better focus on that. Hold on one second. Alright, hopefully you can see that. It's kind of hard because of the lighting here, but basically you have your basic line outputs. This was before they had the digital outputs, which is kind of a shame because I'll talk more about that later. But one of the things that's interesting is that you have an accessory connector, which if we pull this off is kind of like this multi-pin connector, which I guess was for like, you know, expansion somehow, but they never really took use of this connector, and it's kind of like an unwanted connector. It's not really useful or anything, but it is kind of interesting that they had that on the very first CD players. I'm not really sure what it outputs. I haven't really dug into the schematic to really figure out what, you know, the accessory connector does. And we do have a service manual for this that I have in PDF form. And actually, one of the things that's interesting is that the Japanese players actually had a, I think like a synchronization out jack, like right over here. At least the players that I've seen on like Japanese auction sites. Because I did consider getting one from a Japanese auction site, but this one showed up, and the one with the Japanese ones, the Japanese models are going to be running on 100 volts, meaning that you're going to need a step-down transformer if you want to run it and not blow it up. I mean, not blow it up and not have the components fail. I wanted to get a 120 volt version, so I had to get the US version. So yeah, they don't have the synchronization output on the US model, which is kind of interesting. Basically what that was for was, I believe, if you were hooking it up to a cassette deck to make like a cassette copy of your CD. It was kind of like if you want to do like a mixtape or something like that. I'm not really sure. But then you do have auto pause and anti-shock, which auto pause, apparently it will pause the CD player once it reaches the end of each track. And then anti-shock, I'm not really sure what that does. It kind of reminds me of like the anti-skipping stuff, but I don't think this really has any anti-skip protection in it. I'm not really sure what that does. I haven't looked in the schematic either. And it's kind of hard to see those, sorry, because of the lighting. If I can fix the lighting, I don't know. But as you can see, this player was manufactured in August of 1983, making it almost 42 years old. And yes, this is actually the transformer for the CD player. It's a gigantic transformer. And then over here you've got your all of your heatsink like fins, because this is where the power supply lives. And yeah, this thing does get, I guess, somewhat hot. And that's not surprising to me, because I actually own a PCM F1, which is it's basically a digital audio processor, and it actually shares some of the components between this player, surprisingly. I could talk more about the PCM F1 in a different video, but basically the early digital stuff does get hot because it was doing so much like processing for the time. And they did use a big heat sink, and of course they didn't want to make the player big, so they kind of have it hanging out on the back. And down here you've got your serial number, data manufacturer 3C. Kind of hard to see that with the lighting. And you also do have a let me see if I can get that in focus. There we go. And you do have an electrical outlet which can output about 100 watts. I'm not really sure what that's for. I guess if you wanted to plug your amplifier into there or something, you could. So yeah, that's basically the basic features of this CD player. I've gone over it. It's very basic, but it's just designed in a way that I like. And I've always wanted to have one of these. Now, one of the things with these early CD players is that a lot of people like to trash on the Sony CD players because of the DAC that they use, which is the digital to analog converter. A lot of people have said that the early Sony DACs, the 16-bit DACs from Sony, were kind of inferior to the Philips DACs. And the way that Philips did their DACs on their early players, like the Philips CD-100 from 1983, that was the first player that Philips had, they use a 14-bit DAC, but they use some kind of oversampling magic to get 16 bits of digital audio resolution. Don't ask, it's complicated, but the result was that you had a better sound, apparently, according to audiophiles. And audiophiles really like the Philips DACs, especially the TDA-1541. They say those DACs have a great sound, but people have said kind of mixed things about these Sony DACs. And the DAC used on this one is the CX20017. And that DAC, a lot of people have said that the early DACs from Sony were kind of hit or miss, that they either sounded good, decent, or terrible. I guess I'll have to put on some headphones and do some listening myself to see really how good it is. But I don't really care about that because any good CD player is going to sound great, okay? There's really, I mean, unless it's like a really cheapo model. I mean, this was designed and, I mean, it's going to sound great. You know, I don't really have a problem with that. But one of the things that I like to notice is that the way that this DAC works, just got messaged, but the way that this DAC works is that they, the way that the DAC works, it's a mono DAC. Basically, it can process only one channel at a time. And as you know, the audio on a CD is stereo. So what they do is that they run the DAC at a higher frequency. So instead of 44.1 kilohertz, which is the normal sampling rate of a CD, they run it at 88.2 kilohertz. And they do kind of like a weird switching between the left and right channels. Now this works and allows you to get stereo audio from a mono DAC that can only process one channel at a time, because other players like the Philips CD-100, they actually used two DACs. If you look at one of those players, there's actually two DAC chips on those players. But this one just uses one DAC, because of course the cost of a DAC back then was a lot of money, because of course this was early digital, and this player actually sold for about $750, which I'm not sure how much that is in modern terms, but it was definitely a lot. I think like $2,000 or something. So this was definitely, or maybe $1,500, I don't know. But yeah, these players were expensive, and the early digital technology was pretty expensive. So that was kind of like a cost-cutting measure, and it works to get, you know, stereo audio out of a one-channel DAC. But the issue is that you have a little bit of a delay, about 11 microseconds of a delay between the two channels as it switches between them. Now, from what I understand, this is pretty much imperceptible and doesn't really affect with anything. It's not really a big issue. But I'll have to see how it is, because I really want to get this player working. So yeah, that's basically about this player. Just some information about the player. I've kind of rambled on for a long time. So now let's actually talk about the a problem with this player, and let's actually get into fixing it. So this player does have a fault. Basically, I was told that it does not open up the disc tray. And usually that means that there's a belt that is bad on it. However, this player is actually does not actually use any belts. It's all gear driven, and what happens with these players, especially the CDP-101, is that the grease that's used to, you know, move the mechanism out and back, it gets all, you know, dried up and sticky and everything, and that basically causes the problems that you see, basically not being able to load a disc. So basically all we have to do really is just relubricate the player, and hopefully if there's nothing else wrong with it, we should have a working CDP-101. And that's how I was able to get this player for $260. I have seen working players go for more, but really, I mean, these players do go for about $200, $300, regardless if they're working or not. And since this is such a simple issue, it's very documented, actually, with the CDP-101, that the grease likes to get all stickied up on the gears. Hopefully there's no broken gears. It should be an easy fix. But, of course, again, watch it turn into a nightmare. But we're going to plug this thing in for the first time, because I haven't actually plugged it in. It could be dead for all I know in transit, but I doubt that since it was packed well. So we're going to actually plug this in and see what it does. So I'm going to plug it in 3, 2, 1, and watch the explosion. Okay, I haven't hit the power button yet. Okay, so it lights up. We got a 1 on the display. Hopefully you can see that with the lights, but it's kind of hard to do that with the lighting. So let's see what happens if I hit the open button. So it flashes disc, and I don't hear it trying to move the disc. I mean, trying to move the tray. I don't hear any motors running. Okay. Okay, so when the thing's on, you can actually hear it making some, like, feedback. I don't know if you can hear that, but yeah. So basically, it won't open. The good thing is that this button right here, this LED is lit up. That's good. That means that there's no electronical issues with the mechanism. So I'm going to take this apart. Now, I've never taken one of these apart. And we're going to actually transition to an overhead camera mount. And we're going to see how that works. So, catch you in a few minutes. I'm going to take this apart. I've never taken one of these apart, so hopefully it goes okay. I'm just going to take off the top cover, and we're going to see how it works. Okay, well, unfortunately, the overhead camera mount is not going to work, so I'm just going to have to stick to the tripod, unfortunately. But you can see here is the inside of the CD player. Now, I don't want to get shocked, but right over there is the power supply board. And this is your main servo/system control board. And below that is the audio board with all the DAC components and everything like that. And this right here is the actual disc tray, of course. And yeah, it's actually a lot smaller than I expected. So when you have this powered on, I don't hear any motors running or anything like that. So, but it does does click. So what I'm going to try to do is we're going to try to lubricate the arm for the locking arm. So hopefully that works. So I'm going to do that off camera because I tried using the overhead camera mount. The lens is just too heavy for it. It doesn't give you any good picture at all. But I can take this off the the tripod and show you some of the stuff. So this is, of course, your servo board here. Let me just see if I can get that to focus. There we go. So this is your servo board here. This is the power supply. This is your disc tray. And the thing I need to lubricate is within there. So I should be able to get to that. So I'm going to see if I can get to that and put a few drops of machine oil in there and see if that works. I'm probably going to have to take out these 2 screws for the board. I don't know why that's not focusing. Hold on. Alright, so here's more of the inside. As you can see, down there is the audio board, and I'm trying to see where is the DAC. I'm trying to figure out where it is, but there's like some circuit glue or something in there. It's kind of hard to focus, but this is the servo board right here. And what we need to lubricate is, I believe, if I can get this to focus, it's kind of hard to get it to focus. I got it unplugged, so I won't get shocked. It's kind of hard to see, but I don't know why it doesn't want to focus. I guess I need a macro lens or something, but it is right down there. If I can get that to focus. I guess I won't be able to get it to focus. But right, if I can get something to point at it, right there. Hold on. Like right there. So I'm going to put some machine oil on it. And yeah, this isn't really the greatest video. It's not really going that well. But yeah, this is my first ever kind of like repair video that I'm trying to do on this channel. Okay, well, this repair is kind of not going the way that I expected it to. I'm trying to get the bottom cover removed so I can lubricate the locking arm, but the screws don't want to come out, so I have to figure out how to get them out. I don't know why they won't come out. It's just that I just don't have enough torque or something. I don't know. But one thing I can try doing is that we can try playing a CD. And funny enough, this CD actually, this is the Sony CD Sampler Volume 1 Jazz. This was actually sold, I don't know really sold, but given away with a few of these players back in 1983. And I've always had this disc for a little bit, if that will focus. But I've always had this CD. And what I've read you can do is you can kind of manually put the disc in the tray when it's closed, and it will play. So we'll try that and see if we have anything. So I'm going to use the headphone output, plug my headphones in, and see if it gives up any sound. Hopefully. One of the things I did mention is that there are a few ICs over here on the server board that there was a design fault where they get hot and they go bad. Now, I've looked at the ICs, and I believe those are the later Sony ones that they put, because originally they were Sanyo SDK 6522s. And those are used for the tracking and focus servo mechanisms, the focusing and tracking circuit, and they get really hot. And the problem was that they would die. And I believe Sony came out with a replacement called the BX1201, which basically, I don't know if those did not die. I believe those still did get hot and die. So, and there are modern replacements, because all they are just a few like operational amplifiers or something. I've looked at the schematic, and but yeah, I'll talk more about that later. Let's just see if I can get this disc to play. I'm trying to get the thing to open up the disc tray, but I tried putting machine oil on the locking arm from above, but that didn't really seem to work. Let's just see if this disc will play. I might have to get the servo board out of the way. Alright, there we go. It's in that tray. So let's see what happens. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. It's spinning. Oh, it's playing! It is playing!
I would like to play a blister that is written for a...
It's playing! I don't know if you can hear that, but it's playing through my headphones.
And it's called T-Hole.
I don't know where the microphone is on this, but hopefully you guys can hear that. You can see the track display is working. Okay, now you can definitely hear that. I don't know if this is copyrighted or not, but it's working. It is working. That's good. Now he's got to get the tray to unlock, so... unlock. Get unlocked. Let's just see if it will... There's 5 tracks on this disc. Let's just see if it will go to track 5. And yeah, it goes to track 5. I can't get the bottom cover off because the screws are being kind of a pain in the ass, but it is playing. And it does the fast forwarding. So these are like your slow search, and this is like fast search here. And pause. Yeah, you can't hear that well. I could hook it up into the audio input of my PVM and see how that sounds, but it works. It works. So hopefully it continues to work. So if I hit eject, it's not gonna release the disc. I'm gonna have to manually get it out. So yeah, it does work. It just is that we just have that tray problem. So I am going to try to get the screws out. So really all we have to do to this player is basically just lubricate it, and it should work. So unfortunately, yeah, you really can't get a good view of it because of my overhead camera mount not working. I guess it's just not big enough to support the camera. But that's good news. I'm very happy that it's actually working. So that's good. And if we I just want to get the disc out now. So it does read the disc, which is good, because I have heard something about the lasers on these also kind of going bad. Oh! Did it just eject the disc? I thought it just opened the tray. Oh. Oh. This is kind of slow. This whole thing is kind of slow. So yeah, it does, I guess we got the tray open. I guess the machine oil is starting to work its way in there, but we got to do a real lubrication of it to get it to work. So I could try putting on some lithium grease right now to the machine, but I have to really get that bottom cover removed if I want to get to the actual gears and everything. Let me put this disc away for a second. If I put this up on its side, you can kind of see there's some, hold on, kind of see there's some rails that we can lubricate here. Doesn't want to stay open. But, yeah, it seems to be... Okay, well, let me turn it back on. Yeah, this locking lever keeps the tray in. Let's try opening it again, see if it stays open. I don't know why it's... Yeah, it definitely needs to be lubricated. It definitely needs some lubrication. Okay, now it stays open. Now it stays open. Okay. So now if I hit close. Okay, well that's good. We kind of got it working. That's good news. So now I'm going to try to get the bottom off, and then we're going to try to do we'll give this a whole lubrication job, and that should probably be the end of the video. I'm sorry that this video hasn't been working out the way I expected it to, because the overhead camera mount didn't really want to work, but I really wanted to show you like the insides of this player, but unfortunately I really can't do that with a tripod and this overhead camera mount, sadly. So it's a little while later, and I guess this is going to be part 2 of the video. It's been quite a few hours since I last filmed with this, but we are back again, and I took off the bottom panel, finally got those screws out, and also the audio board. I actually had to cut a cable tie that was holding the audio board into place. Yeah, but I'm just going to barely be able to show you what is stuck and what needs to be lubricated, but this is the mechanism here, the entire mechanism. We're going to give all of this a nice clean and new grease and everything. What we need to lubricate is right there, and if I can point to it, it's under this plastic thing, this locking gear that's attached to a spring. It's very stuck right now. And that is what I need to take out, and I need to lubricate that. Need to clean it and then lubricate it. And it's going to be very hard for me to show you this on camera, but that is basically the locking lever. And it's held on by an E-clip. So I am going to remove that E-clip, and we are going to take that out. And hopefully nothing goes wrong. And I'm probably going to cut the video right here because I don't want to, I'm probably going to swear a lot while I'm taking it out, so I don't want to hear that. I don't want anybody to hear that, but I'm going to take that out and hopefully apply something like brake cleaner to it to hopefully clean off the old grease, and then we're going to put new machine oil on it, and hopefully then we'll just re-lubricate the rest of the mechanism here with some lithium grease that I got, and clean off like these motors and stuff and everything, and hopefully we should have a working CDP-101. So here we go. And there it is. If I can get that to focus again. Just learning how to use my new camera. But that is the piece that I need to clean. Finally got that out. Took a little bit of time, mostly because it wouldn't come out, but I'm gonna try cleaning this now with some, I guess, brake cleaner or whatever, and hopefully that will get it not gummed up. As you can see, I had to actually bring the tray out, and yeah, it's kind of been a lot of work. You can see just how complicated this mechanism is, and everything, but yeah, it is definitely a complicated mechanism to work on. So now I'm going to work on lubricating this mechanism. I'm going to clean off all the old grease with isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to use this white lithium grease that I got from Laser Parts on eBay. I believe it's run by a guy named Ethan. I bought this, of course, for a Laserdisc player, but apparently it should work on a regular, you know, CD player. I mean, anything mechanical. Apparently they didn't package it, kind of packaged it kind of iffy, and now it's getting all over my fingers, but we can see if it will actually work. Lubricating this mechanism. I'm also going to use some machine oil for like the mechanical metal shafts and everything. So yeah, just put some lithium grease on here. Should probably clean it off with some isopropyl alcohol first, and once I get done with that, I will put the player through its paces and hopefully get everything back together. But try to put that this thing on. I cleaned this with some brake cleaner, and hopefully it should be unstuck. And I guess I don't know if anybody really wants to see me clean it, but I'm just gonna clean off all the old grease and apply some new lithium grease. All I'm doing is just alcohol and lithium grease. I probably would have used silicone grease, but this is what I have on me. So yeah, like right over here, I'm gonna lubricate this, put some white lithium grease on these gears. The gears don't look cracked or anything; they look just fine. So that's good. And as a bonus feature, I'll show you what I'm going to be doing after we get this player all working, because I thought I would do some cool, interesting stuff with this player, just to show you kind of like how CD players kind of work from what I've learned. So yeah, I'm just going to get back to you guys once I'm done relubricating this. I guess I could show up like a sped up montage, but I really don't want to do that. So I'm just going to cut back and I'll see you guys later. Okay. So it's a little while later, and that E-clip was kind of a pain in the ass to get on, but I managed to get it on. And as far as I'm aware, this player is basically fixed. I've been messing with it. I don't think it really likes being up on its side, but if I hit the eject button, you'll see the mechanism. Yep. There we go. And I think that is interesting. That mechanism right here, what that does right there is that basically puts the disc clamp like down so it can actually spin up the disc. I don't have a disc in here, but it's pretty interesting how it works, how complicated the mechanism was in these early CD players. It's just so interesting to watch. Now, I haven't put a disc in here, and I think I have everything plugged back in the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to put a disc in here and see if it still actually plays and that I didn't mess anything up. And if that works, then I'm going to call this a successful repair. Kind of rare that I get a successful repair. But yeah, it seems to be going pretty well. I have to kind of get the sled motor to go across these rails here, as you can see, because the grease is on them, but it hasn't been like smeared around. I might have applied a little bit too much grease, but it's probably not going to be an issue. So I'm going to put a disc in here. I'm going to play it and see if it works. Actually, let me just see if it will play a disc on its side. I want to see if it will do that. So I just hit the open button. It might be a little bit difficult to get it to play. I might have to put it on its side like this and then get it to... You put the clamp down. Will it spin up? Okay, it's spinning up. Okay, it's spinning up. Does it read the disc? Hold on, I really can't see much. Okay, as far as I know, it's playing. I mean, I don't have my headphones hooked up, but I want to see if I can get this motor to run. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in like there. It's a little bit harder to get zoomed in. Hold on. I wish I had a monitor for my camera. The focusing isn't really that good. That's a little bit better. Let's see if I can get it to track skip. Yeah, that's what I want to do it. Yeah, go to the end of the disc. Of course, this disc is only like, I don't know how long this disc is, but I'm trying to get it to go to the very end of the track. I'm trying to see if I have a disc that is, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get this to focus. It's hard, I can't really see what's on the camera screen because, yeah, and the focusing is kind of hard. It wants to, yeah, there we go. But I want to get this to the very last track. Yeah, just like that. On my test disc. Just to lube it up. Also, I didn't get any lubricant on these, oh, okay, let me get my thing out. I'll put some lubricant on these rails over here just to be safe. But as far as I know, it is working. I don't think I did anything that would mess it up. You actually hear the motor running as the CD is playing. You hear it slowly advancing. Okay. And now let's go back to the very beginning. I think I can get some of this excess off. I'll clean off some of the excess. I think I might have a little bit too much on there. Let me just grab another Q-tip and get some of it off. I don't really want to have excess grease. Hopefully this video has been exciting for you. But what I'm going to try to do is we're going to try to do some bonus stuff at the very end of the video. Yeah. That should be good. How much is that in the disc? Try to get it to the very end. I guess I'll put a little bit of grease at the end of the disc. Yeah, that's the end of the disc. Yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to lube this up, but yeah. So it's getting pretty late right now, but tomorrow what I'm going to plan on doing is I'm going to do a little bit of a bonus segment, and we are going to actually take a look at some of the raw waveforms coming off of this player from the audio board. I'm going to take a scope, and we're going to put a scope on it, and I'm going to show you some of the signals on my Tektronix oscilloscope. Let's see if I can get it to focus there. If for some reason it does not want to focus that good, I've been having focusing issues with this camera all the time. But, yeah. But, yeah, I think it's pretty much fixed. I also cleaned the lens with some alcohol just to be sure. And I think we have a working CDP-101. Hello and welcome to the bonus section of our program. Today we are going to be taking a look at some of the waveforms coming off of this Sony CDP-101 compact disc player. So I thought I would do a bonus section just because I thought the video kind of turned out a little bit poor. So I thought I would make up for it by kind of showing you some of the waveforms from one of these early CD players. So I have my oscilloscope hooked up to here. This is a Tektronix 2445 analog oscilloscope from I don't know what year it's from, but I have a probe connected to it, and we have it connected to the audio board. And what you're looking at right now is what they call the eye pattern. This is actually the raw output from the laser, and it looks like a bunch of sine waves, and basically it creates an eye pattern. And this is essentially basically the raw pits and lands coming off of the CD, if I'm correct. And we can adjust this, and yeah, you can kind of see that it's kind of wobbling, and that might be because I have the player on its side, and it might not like that. But this is test point 3 off the audio board, and I have it hooked up to test point 10, which is just ground. So it's actually just test point 3, which is your RF signal. This is the raw RF from the CD player that gets processed and turned into digital data. And it looks pretty okay. I think I could probably get it better. Basically, what you want to have this signal maximized as best as possible. And you want to have it as maximized as possible. But you also want to have, if you look in here, there's these eyes, like these diamond shapes. And basically what I've read is that you want to get them to look as clear as possible. Now, they look pretty fine to me. I think they could use a little bit of adjustment, but I've never adjusted a CD player before, so I really don't know how... I don't really want to mess it up because it's playing just fine. So, yeah. And we can look at this a little further. It's kind of weird. I'm not really sure why it looks like this on the scope, but it looks like that. And that is basically your raw pits and lands. They use something called 8 to 14 modulation. And I'm not really a CD engineer, of course, but this is just pretty cool. This is what you would use to kind of adjust the tracking and focusing circuits. Now what I'm going to probe is I'm going to take my probe off, and we are going to probe test point 1, which this is, if I can get this adjusted correctly, this is your, hold on. This is supposed to be the focus error, if I'm correct. And that is, yeah, that is, let me see. I'm just going to look at the schematic here. That is test point 1, which is the focus error. And basically that's the signal that drives the focusing coil of the laser assembly. And basically allows it to focus on the pits and lands, because the lens is basically kind of moving around to try to track the disc. Well, that's not tracking, this is focusing. It's got to focus, kind of like a lens onto the actual pits, because it's a distance away from the pits. And it's got to track it, if that explains it. And that is apparently the signal here. And I can, yeah. So that's that signal, which I guess is pretty cool. And then test point 2, which is right next to it. Test point 2 is the tracking error, which, yep, there's that. That is basically the tracking error. It's basically no data, but this is basically how it tracks the pits and lands, because of course it's a spiral groove. And it's got to move around to make sure that it's actually hitting the pits and lands of the CD. And I've never actually seen what these waveforms look like, but this is what they look like on a scope. So, yeah. And if I look here, I'm trying to find the actual DAC. I might have to pause and go to the service manual, because I have the service manual brought up, the schematic, and I'm just probing around here. I'm going to see what else I can probe. So I basically probed the RF, which is basically test point 3, which if I can find it again, is this it? Yeah, this is it. And, yeah, this is basically before they had digital servos in CD players. So, you would have to kind of do a lot of adjustments on these early CD players before they had the digital servo circuits, because everything is done analog. Even though this is a digital, CD player, all the focusing and tracking servo is done analog. And hopefully it's going pretty well. Doesn't look like there's any problems with the SDK tracking chips. I mean, the Sony ones. I think these have the Sony tracking chips in them. So yeah, that seems to be pretty good. Like I said, I could adjust this, but I don't really want to. I would rather adjust it on like a cheapo CD player, get like a cheap Sony, and try adjusting it myself before I attempt to kind of adjust kind of a rare piece of audio equipment. So let's see what else I can scope. I'll mess around with this, and if I find anything interesting, I will cut back and we'll see what I can find. This is probably the last thing I'm going to show you. This is the, I believe the phase-locked loop frequency or something. It's some sort of thing to do with the servo, but as you can see, it's like a sine wave. I'm not really sure what it does, but it's a very high frequency sine wave, as you can see there. You really have to zoom into it to actually view it as a sine wave. And yeah, there's really not that much to really look at. The most interesting part, of course, is that, let me see if I can get it back on, is that, you know, this, this is really the main thing that's really of interest when you're servicing a CD player is the eye pattern. And depending on if you have like a CDR in there, I don't even know if this player will even play CDRs, but I guess I can try that as an experiment, but depending on the CD you have in here, the amplitude will be different. And like I said, of course, you want to maximize the amplitude and everything, but really, aside from the focus and tracking circuits, there really isn't that much to show you. So I think I'm going to put this thing back together, and I think we're going to call it a video. And hopefully you guys enjoyed something. If you want to learn more about CDs, I'd recommend watching some of 12-volt vids videos where he repairs CDs, because he does do this where he hooks it up to a scope and shows you and does the adjustment. I'm not really prepared to do the adjustments just yet, and since this plays just fine, I really don't see the need to. It's just kind of interesting just to look at it on a scope, because this is like the raw data from the photodiodes of the laser. It's just kind of cool to look at that and to see that that's actual data. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna end this video out. I'll put this thing back together and call it a day. Well, that's it. That's the end of the video. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. So I guess it's time to kind of talk about the final verdict that I have on this player. I've been listening to it for a while, and yeah, it just sounds like any other basic CD player. I mean, you really don't notice anything really different about it. You know, maybe if you had a bunch of industry professionals, you know, try to tell the difference between this and a modern player, a modern high-end player, maybe you could tell. But honestly, I think it's good for anybody who just wants to get into, you know, vintage digital or vintage audio. I wouldn't pay like $600 for one of these. I mean, the maximum I would pay would probably be like $300 for one of these things. I mean, I paid $260 for this one, and of course it had the tray issue, which I, you know, fixed. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like much goes wrong on here except for the tray mechanism and the, and those tracking chips, the tracking and focus servo chips that apparently go bad, but apparently, I don't know, I listened to it and it doesn't seem to be having any problems. It does get a little warm by the transformer. So, should you buy a CDP-101? Well, I mean, you could probably get a much better player that looks kind of the same for probably a lot cheaper, like a CDP-30 or a CDP-40 that's a little bit newer from like 85 or so. Or get like an ES model, like a used ES model. I mean, unless you really want to get a CDP-101, you really like the design, or you're just interested in, you know, this history of CDs. I mean, if you can get one of these for a good price, it's definitely a good collection. It's definitely good to add to a collection of CD players or vintage audio equipment. And I think I'll probably use this as my day-to-day CD player. I mean, I've got other CD players, you know, CD changers and stuff like that, but this is just so cool, just the way that it works and everything, you know, it's just nice to have this as a collector's piece. So, I mean, it's completely up to you. I mean, it sounds as great as any other CD player. I mean, I don't really want to get into specifics about it, but, you know, maybe the other CD players are a little bit better. I really don't know. I haven't really done a comparison between, like, this and a modern ES player. But to me, it sounds just as good as any other, you know, digital audio player or DAC out there. I mean, it just sounds fine. I mean, I don't notice anything that sounds bad about it. And it, you know, the way it works, I mean, it's well built, and, you know, I just like it. So I guess that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this repair video. Maybe I'll get another one of these and we'll do another repair video or something on these. Maybe I'll import one from Japan, you know, or something. But I've got some stuff lined up. Hopefully kind of getting back into making YouTube videos again, you know, as a kind of a career. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.